bloke's pretty handy in the air as well.
This irresistible force that is Collingwood. It's another Collingwood miracle. What a team to barrack for.
You're arguably the most visible player in the competition right now. And I don't say that to embarrass you because your club's, so extraordinarily well supported and your profile through the roof as the captain. Are you feeling that?
I definitely am feeling a difference. I think being the captain this year, I'd be lying if I said it felt the same as years gone by. I've certainly felt a bit more responsibility, a bit more attention. And like you said, I think that definitely comes with, being the team that was at the top of the ladder for the most of the season. There's a sort of pressure and attention and expectation associated with that. So I've definitely felt that. But, I've been at Collingwood for 9 years and it's sort of been a little bit of a constant as well. We feel like everything we do is of consequence at Collingwood. If we're performing well, it feels like it matters. And if we're not performing well, that also feels like it matters. So I suppose I'm used to it in a way, but it's definitely been to a new level this year.
You've immersed yourself in that, though, and you've made a really profound impact at various stages throughout the year, most significantly Anzac Day, where you spoke so eloquently and put into words the thoughts of so many people. And the whole generation sat back and said, how can he do that? How can he finish playing a game of footy and then walk and stand up and speak so well?
Finally, to the families of those serving and those veterans, too often your stories go untold, and on behalf of the Collingwood Footy Club, just want to acknowledge the pain of war that runs through so many families across this country. So it's a real honour for us to run out here and play our game in honour of you and your service. So to the families of those who have served, thank you so much for your service. Thank you.
Were you conscious of having a platform to make a statement?
Yeah, I think it sort of came about pretty organically for me. I mean, we spent a lot of time during the week as a team reflecting on the occasion. Fly's pretty big on that, not treating it like any other game because it's not, it's a special occasion for the country. So we spent a lot of time hearing different stories throughout the week about generational impacts that it had on families, and that was probably the main. I've played in 5 or 6 Anzac days now, and that was probably as big a takeaway as any this year, was around the legacy of those wars and how it's still affecting generations today. And some of those people were in our team and in our club that shared those stories. So that was front of mind as well. Also did a lot of reading about, the Royal Commission into veteran suicide, which released some findings a few days before the game around just the scale of the issue. And I suppose just reading the news and, taking that in and absorbing it, it sort of felt like this game, like you said, I've had a bit of a platform in that situation to be able to speak to those people and make them feel seen and, just remind everyone that, the day is about much more than a football game. It's got a broader significance.
So you're bucking a trend of what has been, rightly or wrongly, a stereotypical footballer, they're meatheads and they're this and that. Do you enjoy the fact that you can be this different version of what we've come to accept over a number of years?
I wouldn't say I enjoy it per se. I suppose I'm just sort of being myself. Yeah. I'm someone who's pretty interested in the world and pretty curious to learn about things, and I'm pretty engaged in reading the news and current affairs. I'm studying politics, so those are things that I'm naturally interested in anyway. So things that make headlines in the news outside of the world of sport are things that are interesting to me as well. So if that's considered not stereotypical to people, then I suppose it is, but I'm just sort of being myself in that respect.
I think that sits so comfortably, and it's why you've been so well received. I mean, you're a polarising footy club, so to have the captain of the football club almost be the voice of a new generation of footy players is really significant. But the authentic nature of it is what's important, because the very next week you did an interview and dropped an F-bomb.
Feels like we don't want too many handballs. Their big guys came to play, their fucking mark and everything, so we had to fight really hard to stay in that one. Yeah,
I actually had no idea that I'd done that until after the game. Eddie McGuire actually texted me, of all people. I picked up my phone and he said, you've just dropped the F-bomb on TV, and I had absolutely no idea when I did it. Played out the game. Obviously, it was a crazy finish, so I obviously had other things on my mind. But, I felt pretty embarrassed. Yeah, that was not my finest.
Well, you're needing to be, because I think
we were playing terrible as well, so I feel like it's the moment sort of warranted it as well.
What leadership style have you embraced and adopted? Because you've taken over from one of the greats. Have you worked at it? Did it come naturally? The Pendlebury, influence while he's still there? How does it all sit?
Yeah, that's been a massive part of it. I think Scott's legacy. When I sort of accepted the role and took over, I was very aware that, not only that what he'd done in the role and his enormous standing, but the fact that he's still around. So talk about my leadership style, I've sort of really made a conscious effort trying to draw on those resources around me. So guys like Scott, guys like Steele, guys like Jamie Elliott and Jeremy Howe with enormous experience I see that as a real asset to our team. And I think I've been so blessed with those guys to have their support and have their backing. And I think as well, people have seen that on the field and responded to it, how connected we seem as a team and the sort of footy that we're playing and just how well we shake off our mistakes and just move on from poor moments in games. I think that's a real trademark of our team.
That's really interesting, because that's not the way it used to be. And, we've been at games, and I love it when we cover your games, and I love watching you blokes emerge from the race. And I'm watching the faces, right? And once upon a time, it was, you're in the moment, you're in the zone, you dare not smile, you dare not... I'm looking at your group and you're laughing and you're at the front and you're Josh and Nick and next year and then Jordan to go, his big chompers, he's smiling. What comes first? Is it the victories that put you in that frame of mind to say that this is a great game to be a part of, or is it, let's get in this and won't worry about the victory, let's get in the right mindset and then the success will come?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one. It's definitely a balance. I mean, the coach is pretty emphatic the way he speaks about our team and about our club, us being a process-based team. And that's sort of what that means, is regardless of how we're going on the field in terms of results or output or how well we're executing, our process needs to be strong. And part of that is having fun. Footy should be fun. We're here because we love it, and obviously winning helps, and it's a results-based industry. And so when you get results, it makes a big difference. We're not blind to that. You're not skipping down the hallways when you've lost 10 games in a row. But I think it's really natural as part of our group. It's really authentic. We just love being in each other's company. And when you're sort of succeeding together on the field as well, it really feeds it and sort of snowballs as the season wears on. But it's really consistent from when we started under Fly last season around, regardless of results, we want to enjoy ourselves and remember to have fun when we're playing footy. And it sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? That we work our whole lives to live our dream, and then we go out there and, are there guys out there that are just stressed about certain things or anxious about certain things? I mean, it seems ridiculous that you have to remind people to have fun out there doing what we love, but it's part of it.
Well, it works, and it's about being comfortable in your own vulnerability, exploring each other's vulnerabilities, being, open to displaying it, and not all the time, but I think the successful teams, Richmond certainly were the start of it, I think, under Koch and Dimmer, but you blokes seem to have nailed that.
Yeah, it is interesting, and then it's even an interest. Like Fly's been in the industry, he obviously played in a really successful era at Brisbane and a different era, and so did a few of our coaches. And yeah, seeing how the media, guys like yourselves that have from another generation, how they're seeing it and experiencing it in a new way, and almost seeing football slightly differently is a really nice part of it. That generational stuff. I know my dad feels the same, and he really responds to it as well and loves watching it.
I'm interested in Collingwood as the football club, and the Eddie Maguire era was such a massive part of it, and the showman that he was, and the omnipresent, and he was always throwing Collingwood in everyone's face in a good way. But it did sort of polarise you, put you one out a bit, and I'm interested to get your thoughts on the environment. Like the shadow that Ed cast was massive. He left under a cloud of, unfortunate the do better stuff was part of it, but he contributed so much. But then he moves away. I'm wondering whether you all took a bit of a deep breath and thought, all right, now we've got to reinvent, or it takes a little bit of pressure off. Or maybe not.
You definitely reflected on Eddie's contribution to our club, where we were when he took over, and then where we finished was extraordinary. He just turbocharged our club and brought it into the modern era and put us in the position we're in to just, like you said, be front of mind in this industry and be, like I said before, we're a club of consequence in this industry. People care what we do, and a lot of that was to do with Eddie and the scale that he built Collingwood to. But I think, change is sort of natural in organisations, and I think we've been a really good example of that. Obviously, Jeff's taken over and is probably, equally as credentialed. He's sort of got an incredible business background and legal background and some amazing achievements already in the corporate world. So he's brought a level of leadership there, which I've seen personally. And Graham Wright coming in as well in 2021 was really, from a successful era at Hawthorn, was somebody who I really gravitated to straight away, really impressed with the way he communicates, just how calm he is. He's very measured. He makes decisions based on evidence. He sort of doesn't fly off the handle, which I think's really great. And then, he obviously had a big role to play in appointing Fly, who's been a bit of a breath of fresh air as well, and a new and interesting coach, and captured the imagination of the team and the industry as well. So it's been, a number of when you reflect on it, I suppose, lots of change and some pretty important roles in the footy club, and we've fortunately found the right mix that's working at the moment.
Yeah, so you say fortunately, got clubs now who are looking to appoint a coach, right? So Craig McRae comes from virtually left field. We didn't know much about him. We knew he's a damn good player. Yeah. The impact he's had, I think he's going to be seen to be generational, and I think he changed the way that he interacts with us, the way we see him come into Fox here. He doesn't go to us to say his first port of call is the makeup lady and introduces himself and says hi, and then he gets. I see that and I think, that's reflected in this football club. So tell me what they got right when they appointed Craig McRae as coach.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know. Well, I spoke about Graham Wright before. He was someone who, obviously at the end of 2021 we performed really poorly and finished second bottom, and a lot of change at the football club. And he, as senior players, he really drew on us and asked us what our views were and sort of canvassed our views on where we need to go and what our environment needs to look like. And I thought doing that before we went on break was really professional, and he seemed to just gather lots of people's thoughts and be able to work out a vision for what we need in a senior coach and what sort of environment we need to take us forward. So then obviously followed the process with the selection committee, and like you said, Fly sort of wasn't somebody touted as being high profile and someone with a massive coaching resume as an AFL senior coach. So I suppose it could be perceived as a left field coach, but I know speaking to them, as soon as he sat down with them and sat in front of them, they were really impressed with him and thought, this guy's the guy, he's exactly what we need. So, I think it takes a bit of courage, I suppose. It's high pressure, isn't it? Coaching appointments in this industry. It's look at this season, look at last season. It's hard. You got to make the right decisions, and these administrators have it's really tough to work out whether you go with a tried and tested coach or whether you try and break new ground and find someone new. And it's really difficult. There's so many clubs where it's a bit of a turnstile. So.
The lesson in that is you got to know yourself before you go and chase the coach, I reckon. So you saying that Graham Wright then says, okay, who are we? What is the strengths and weaknesses? And then go, okay, we don't need a coach that's been there for 30 years, but we need someone that's new that comes along with the journey. So understanding who you are, I think, is the most important part.
Totally.
Of that.
And I think one of the real strengths that Fly had, reflecting on last year, was when he first came in, was being able to draw on the experience that we had in the team. You got guys like I said before, Pendlebury and Sidebottom and Jeremy Howe and Taylor Adams, and these are guys who are pretty experienced and, have been a part of successful teams, and, even Jamie Elliott as well, been around 11, 12 years. And I thought he came in and was able to draw on that sort of senior leadership kind of that really well, and didn't try and teach those guys how to play football again. Acknowledge that you know what you're doing, what it takes. We just got to help young players do that and we'll be all right. And I think that was one of his great strengths.
Trust.
Yeah.
Craig McRae and Darcy Moore have done it again.
Different this year to last. Last year, no one really thought you were going to be there. New coach gets a free hit at it. This year, you finished on top of the ladder position. You probably knew 6 weeks out. Is there more or less pressure? Same? How do you feel going in?
It does feel slightly different to me. I mean, last year we were very much riding that wave of momentum, winning 11, 12 games in a row and so many close ones. That was that was a really unique challenge, honestly, reflecting on it. Just the amount of fatigue and adrenaline that we had in all those games towards the end of the season was something really new that we hadn't experienced. Normally you play in one or two close, amazing games over a season, but we were doing, 6, 7, 8 of them in a row. Crazy. By the time the finals came, it was sort of, it felt pretty overwhelmed. So, it was a special season. We finished, in the top 4, and it ended the way it did in heartbreaking fashion, but, we'll reflect on that, and it was a special season and a wild ride. And to be honest, as the season goes on, behind the scenes, we're working constantly on, a footy team is it's a bit like spinning plates. There's parts of your game that are going really well at a given time and other parts that aren't going as well, and you're sort of trying to improve these things without sacrificing the things you're doing well. And the coach is pretty open. He's really bullish that our best footy is ahead of us, and we feel that. We feel like we've changed a few things over the season. We've changed our mix-up. We've had a look at, different roles for guys, different compositions of the team, so that we get to this position for finals and we feel like we've got options to go to, we've got weapons, we know what we're good at. And now it's just, at the end of the day, all you can really do is qualify, and then you just got to play your best footy now.
Your old man, what about that? He's the captain of Collingwood. You're now the captain of Collingwood. He's got heritage in both camps. So you're Brownlow medal, Collingwood Brownlow medal at Melbourne. How's he feeling on the eve of this final season?
Yeah, he's very much a Collingwood man these days. So he hasn't been hanging around the red and blue the last 8 or 9 years since I've been in the league. But no, he's loving it. He's just a proud dad, enjoying it from the sidelines, really. I'm really grateful. He's not someone who, likes to be front and centre and is sort of all over the place. He's pretty happy for, he always says that he wants my career to be my moment and about me and not about him. So I'm really grateful for that. He's so supportive and, always taking an interest in us and always has an opinion, which sometimes isn't always well received. But that's all dads and their sons, I think. It's pretty universal.
Sounds like the Peter Moore I knew as a young fella.
It was quite funny. A few weeks ago, we had all the dads in at training, and Fly went around and asked all the guys what was your dad's sort of big bit of advice when you were playing footy, either in footy or life as a kid. And it was really funny how similar so many of them were. And
can you share what was the pearls of wisdom?
The one that came to my mind was Dad always telling me in under 10s or under 11s, just when I was playing in the ruck at that stage, he just said, always just stand a kick and a half behind the play, and then they'll just kick it straight back to you. And I said, I've really taken that to heart in my professional career, that's for sure.
That's interesting, isn't it? Like you've emerged as an outstanding defender of the game, one of the very best. You're 200 plus centimetres. So at what stage did you go, no, I'm a defender? Was it a moment? Was it a coach? How did that
Yeah, it was certainly a moment in, God, I can't remember what year it was, maybe end of 2017, when Bucks at the time suggested that we switch. It was sort of around the time that, the idea of starting score sources from turnovers in your back half was sort of coming a little bit more into trend, and having a bit more of a aggressive, explosive defence rather than a purely defensive one. That was probably where that game trend was sort of starting. So as a part of that, it was suggested that I do this, and I was really lucky in 2018, even though, I had a really interrupted year, obviously did 5-6 hamstring injuries over the season, didn't get to play much. I was able to learn a lot under Justin Longmuir as the defensive coach at Collingwood, so certainly was in the hands of one of the very best, in terms of learning the craft of playing the role. And then, beyond that, it was just a bit about working out how I want to go about it, what makes me unique, and playing to my strengths. So
you've done it pretty well. Tell me about pressure, the pressure of the game, the pressure of the position, the pressure to perform week in, week out, the social media pressure.
I definitely feel like it's really important as a young player when you're sort of starting out in this industry, learning the best ways to cope with that pressure and that attention. And because in many ways, at the age that we are when we come in 18, 19, it's really not really very natural, and we know that mental health concerns are pretty high on the list for players. So, I think I've just learned strategies around mental health hygiene and having a really close supportive network around me is really important. So close friends, close family who, you can really lean on and don't really care how you perform on the weekend. They sort of treat you the same and keep you humble as well. I've definitely got 3 older sisters who need no invitation to keep me pretty humble. So that definitely helps. And having trusted, really close friendships really helps as well. But it's difficult. You just have to, in some ways, you have to learn the hard way and learn what it feels like to really not cope with pressure, to be able to learn strategies going forward. And that's something even in this leadership role that I'm reflecting on, how to help young guys with that journey around when it comes to, the most important games, the most important moments, how do you perform? And it's something you definitely never arrive at either. We're under pressure at the moment to perform in the finals, and at the end of the day, all you can do is go out there and give it your best and give it hell. So that's all we're trying to do.
So when you want to get away completely and forget about the jumper that you wear, where do you go? What do you do?
I really enjoy studying at university. Really helps. So I go there once a week and have class, and it's just really nice being in a totally different environment around other young people. And obviously the focus of everyone's attention isn't football and isn't me. It's sort of what we're studying. So I really like that. It's something I learned pretty early on that I really, really gives me energy as well. I'm also pretty cerebral person, got lots of intellectual interests. So when I'm reading and feeling engaged in that stuff, it helps me get a release from the game as well. But, by the same token, you don't really get a chance to fully switch off. I mean, this job demands so much of you and you have to be so focused and make so many sacrifices. So there's a part of you that has to embrace that as well.
I love that we've got this cerebral Collingwood captain. I think it's, again, bucking stereotypes, fair or unfair, warranted or not. Who within the locker room can you just turn to if you need to have that conversation about the referendum or the voice or whatever? Is there someone there you can look around and go, I'll actually get a good conversation here?
Wow. Oh, there's plenty. There's plenty.
Who? Give us a couple of names.
God, who's...
Bros Maynard, is he invested in that referendum or not?
Not as interested in the Australian political landscape, Bros, but...
Taylor Adams is actually someone who I've leaned on quite a lot. He's done a lot of study himself and has a lot of business interests outside of the game. So he's someone who, really engages with his interests outside. Scott's got a lot of wisdom. He's about 47 years old, so he's got a lot. He's got a lot to contribute. So
I was going to throw a few names at you, and then you just give us your first thoughts. So Jack Ginnivan.
Wow, what's a word?
I've got him speechless.
God, it's boring.
the great orators, I've quietened him down with one word. Jack Ginnivan.
Jack Ginnivan, interesting.
Braden Maynard.
Fearless.
Bo McCreary.
Lightning.
Justin Leppich.
Annoying.
Craig Kelly.
Loud.
How will you be feeling on the morning of that first final? It's Melbourne and Collingwood, which I think is the greatest rivalry in football, and you're playing for all the chips. Give me when you wake up that morning, your first emotion or your emotion through the course of that day.
I mean, it's hard to go past just excitement, really. We just, obviously an enormous build-up. We do all that training, we make all those sacrifices, we play all those games on the road, all those games in the middle of winter in the rain, and all those training sessions in, 5-6 degrees in the height of Melbourne winter. It's so that you can, wake up on that day and feel like you're ready to go. So it's exciting. And, when we step around that corner and walk up the race and hear the roar of the Magpie Army, and that's my favourite moment by far. And, when that moment comes, we've got to be ready. So it's exciting.
Good luck.
Thanks, mate.